Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bonner here, Overtime Athletes, back for part 2 as far as increasing shot percentage. Last video we talked about essentially the first thing that you look at is getting the footwork right. That immediately starts to increase shot percentage. You see this across the board from youth to high school to elite level basketball players. What's the next series of things that you look for as far as addressing with an athlete, kind of from a global perspective, that you can immediately start to increase their in-game shot percentage?
Yeah, so that next thing after footwork is probably hand and elbow placement.
Okay.
And so it goes down to, again, the most simple form, like right when you learn how to shoot a basketball, where you put your hands, or all the way down to the most complex guys. When there's something that's a little bit off with their shot, if you go down and break it down into these steps, say for instance you're a pro and you're overseas and you can't figure out why you're going through a shooting slump. If you break it down into every single segment of it and you go through it, all these things, you'll probably be able to figure out, that's what's going on with my jump shot based on hand placement. Things that you look for, obviously the first one is your guide hand. So guide hand meaning your offhand, your offhand, not your shooting hand. It's right on the side of the ball. So a lot of times you'll see guys, they might let this crawl a little bit in front, or they might even bring their fingers a little bit too tight so they're not controlling the ball as much. Having a good grip on that ball with your guide hand, but also not holding it too much, so that right when you're going up in your jump shot, that hand's guiding the ball. You're not holding it too much, it's just there to guide it up there and so it doesn't fall off balance. But that first thing is making sure that guide hand is where it needs to be. You're not letting those fingers crawl in front of the ball because that's gonna mess up the spin of the jump shot. But making sure that guide hand is right there on the side of the ball. The next one is with your shooting hand, making sure that your fingers aren't too tight together. So making sure that you have some space in between your fingers. A lot of guys like it even like as wide as you could be. I'm not as big on having it as wide as you could possibly have them, but making sure there's some space there in between your fingers. And while we're on the topic of space, you never want this ball to rest on your palm. You always want to be able to see. If you're looking from underneath the ball, you should be able to see a little bit of space there. You're never holding the ball with your palm. The ball's not like this. The ball's up on your fingertips all the time. You never want that ball touching your palm. So fingers are spread, ball's not touching your palm, that guide hand is on the side of the ball. That's how everyone should start their jumper, whether you're coming off of a crossover, you're coming off a down screen, you're a little kid, or you're a pro. That's how your hand should be placed every single time when you're shooting the ball. You're getting ready to go up into your shot, that next thing is your elbow placement. So you wanna, the rule of thumb is having your elbow at about a 90-degree angle. So right there, you want it to be 90 degrees between your forearm and your bicep right there. So when I'm going up into this shot, you don't wanna be bringing it back too far like that, or you don't wanna be too far forward. You're gonna lose power up here, and then back here, you're probably gonna lose a little bit of that control. You always want your elbow to be 90 degrees. So everything's the same here. Guide hand is on it, spread out. I got a little bit of room there in between the ball and my hand, and I'm going up, my elbow's right there at about 90 degrees. So the next part of your shot that has to do with your hand is where you're releasing the ball off of your fingers. So obviously in a shot, you're follow through, you're snapping your wrist, being cognizant of which finger that ball is coming off of. So most shooters want that ball coming off of either their middle two fingers or their front two fingers. So whichever one that is for you, you gotta pick that and you gotta go with that. Now you can't be one of those guys who says, I just let it kind of come off whatever finger it comes off. Pick one. If you want it to come off, if you feel when you're shooting that ball, which finger is the last finger that ball is touching. You gotta be able to think about that as you're shooting. Then it will become second nature. So for me, I like to shoot off of my front two fingers. Every single time I want to feel that ball coming off my front two fingers when I'm follow through are the last fingers that ball is touching. So you never want it to be your pinky is your last finger touching, because what that's going to mean is that your follow through is kind of sideways, or that the spin on the ball is going to be sideways. So making sure that ball comes off either your front two fingers or your middle two fingers are the last fingers that it touches every time. And those would be the things for hand placement and elbow placement that I think can help you. And whatever level you're at, if you can go through those, if you're in a shooting slump or whatever it may be, go through those, go back to the basics with those steps. It might not seem basic for you, or that might seem as basic as it comes. But if there's something going on with your shot and you can't figure it out, go back to those simple steps and start thinking through that, how you learned how to shoot the ball, start thinking through that, you'll be able to get yourself through it.
Got you. So when you're working with somebody and let's say the shot percentage is low, you're basically reverse engineering to the fundamentals to find out what that weak link is, and then basically installing that back into live action drill work.
Exactly.
That's a lot of the stuff that you do is basically getting them to be cognizant of, like you said, if it's the finger, if it's the elbow, if it's you know, the foot placement, going in and then translating that back to, you know, high velocity movement.
Exactly. Breaking it down all the way into a step-by-step kind of thing for you.
Drilling it.
And then drilling it over and over again. It might start with just standstill jump shots.
Gotcha.
And then you start adding movement into it. And by the end, you want to be doing all of your game speed reps and having the ball come off that way without even thinking about it.
Gotcha.
As you add degree of difficulty to the things that you're doing, you start to see a lot of this stuff fall by the wayside.
Okay.
So making sure that as the degree of difficulty and the things that you're doing continues to pick up, that you're not lacking in those fundamentals aspects of the jump shot. Because you see guys all the time start to add a lot of stuff to their workout, and then maybe their footwork goes by the wayside, or they start shooting the ball a little bit differently off their hands. So making sure whatever you're doing when you're adding things, you can still revert back to those fundamentals that you need to.
So would you say best shooters that you've seen or worked with personally, they're able to nail down those essential fundamentals
100%. And
no matter what they're doing in game?
And not only that, but they're also the guys who are the most obsessed with the small details. The guys who are the most obsessed with those little fundamental details about their jump shots are the guys that typically make more shots. So the guys that come out here and can't really figure out why they're going through a slump, or just kind of shoot it and they don't really think about why they're missing the way they're missing, those are the guys that can be average shooters or be streaky shooters. The great shooters are the ones that every single shot can feel all those things about their shot, and they're cognizant about every single shot. You see all those, I worked with a bunch of pros, and you watch them shoot. Right when a guy misses, he's already looking at his hands, and you can tell right when he misses that shot, he's like looking at his hands like, man, my fingers weren't spread out, or it came off the wrong finger. So that the next shot, it's not 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots before you figured it out. Those great ones miss a shot and they can already figure out my feet were right, my hand wasn't right, my left hand was too much on the ball.
Love it, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, man.
Hey, if you guys are interested in more skills training as far as basketball goes with Coach Troy Leaf, go ahead and check out the link down below. I'll see you guys next time.